All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 51st Board of Governors meeting of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. My name is Natasha Kirchuk. I'm an international TV journalist, and I'm going to be hosting today's special gathering. The past year has not been the easiest with the global pandemic that has absolutely shaken the world as we know it. But instead of looking back at the past, we want to focus on the future today and figure out how we can change things for the better. That's why our theme for this year's Board of Governors event is looking ahead, and no, not just 1 year or 2 years ahead. We're going to be looking at our next 50 years. Today, the Ben-Gurion University community is going to share its long-term vision with you and how it's going to make a lasting impact by making our world a better place. How can we use local solutions to take on global challenges? And how can we think outside of the box to contribute to society in a meaningful way? Well, these are just some of the questions that we're going to be answering today to understand just what it takes to make Ben-Gurion University stand out as a world leader in innovation. Now, I'd like to introduce the president of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. That's Professor Daniel Shemovitz. President, we have a lot of different people watching us from around the world today. We have people from Argentina, from Switzerland, Belgium, Portugal, the US, Brazil. The list goes on. We have Canada, Chile, the United Kingdom, Ecuador, France, Israel. I'm not done. Italy, Mexico, the Netherlands, Panama, South Africa, and finally, but last but not least, Peru.
Well, it's a real United Nations we have here.
Quite
and I think,
list.
by next year, we'll probably even have a longer list for you to memorize.
I'm excited.
There you go. So friends from all over the world, welcome to the 51st meeting of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev's Board of Governors. Last year at this time, we were all still new to virtual meetings. But over the past year, we adapted, and I've enjoyed interacting with many of you online over the last year. I'm so happy to see you all here with me today. And while we have to wait a little bit longer to meet in person, let's use today's program and the various chat formats. You can talk to each other. You can try to talk to us. I can't really respond while I'm here in the studio, but other people can, to celebrate our friendships.
Now, Denny, I don't want you to go anywhere because we are going to have you back with us very shortly. But first, I'd like to turn to the chairman of the Board of Governors, Mr. Lloyd Goldman. The floor is yours.
In these challenging times, I hope everyone is well and doing their best to stay safe and healthy. When I spoke at last year's virtual Board of Governors meeting, we were at the onset of a global pandemic, concerned about what lies ahead, yet hopeful that the crisis would be over before long. It was my sincere wish that we could meet in person, shake hands, and get to know each other better at the Marcus Family Campus on our 51st annual Board of Governors meeting. We are not there yet, but I am hopeful that with the vaccination operations taking place all over the world, we will be able to do this, and I look forward to seeing you in October on our BGU trip to Dubai and then to Sed Boker in Israel. As I look back on the passing year, I see that despite the challenges, we have been able to function as a community. We raised a glass of wine together on Seder night. We created the BGU Circle, hosting honorary doctorate recipients who shared their experiences and insights with us. With the help of my vice chairperson, Tony Young, we established the Global Development Committee to further the collaboration between the university's worldwide associate organizations. Working together as a community, we were able to achieve outstanding results in raising the necessary funds for two critical university ventures, the Corona Task Force and the SOS campaign, Save the Class of COVID-19 for our students. Now is the time to look ahead towards the next 50 years, and this half century promises to be exciting with several new projects on the way. Local and international high-tech companies are flocking to Beersheva's high-tech park, recognizing the wealth of knowledge soon to be concentrated in one district. That being said, given the expected relocation of tens of thousands of soldiers and their families to the Negev, the university must be prepared to absorb a great number of students and to capitalize on the anticipated abundance of collaborations. For this reason, the construction of the North Campus is an urgent priority. While we still have a way to go to allow the university to harvest the fruits of the economic, infrastructural, and cultural growth that will take place in the Negev, we are happy to celebrate the opening of the Lori I. Loki Chemistry Building on the Marcus Family Campus this year, and we look forward to many more celebrations of new buildings on all our campuses. Undoubtedly, impressive efforts are made by the university management, the Negev municipalities, and the Israeli government to advance the region and the state of Israel. And I believe that as members of the university's Board of Governors, the future success of these endeavors rests with all of us. I encourage you all to continue to work tirelessly to promote Ben-Gurion University among our friends and colleagues, and to support the university in every way that you can. I am confident that you will join me in embracing the challenges ahead, and that together we will celebrate many future achievements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lloyd, and it was wonderful to see you. We love to hear from you. All right, let's dive straight into what the last year looked like for BGU with a quick glance at the year in review, followed by the President's annual address to the Board of Governors. Take a look.
מאוניברסיטת בן-גוריון, כאן בבאר שבע. אנחנו פיתחנו שיטות לאתר את הנגיף בתוך המי שפכים.
Dear friends, this is the last time, I hope, that I have to greet you virtually. Many times through the past year, confronted with the encroaching pandemic, I asked myself, how would David Ben-Gurion, a master in crisis management, react? What did Ben-Gurion do when he encountered obstacles on his journey? Time after time, he set up a task force, and the results of these task forces are with us to this day, including our university. And this is what we did too. We established task forces in research, in teaching, and in community response to confront one of the great crises that the world has known. And despite the constant uncertainty, we strive to act in alignment with the deeply held values that define the BGU spirit. So I am proud to report that the BGU family rallied over the past 12 months to ensure that despite the challenges, Ben-Gurion University of the Negev would continue in its mission so essential for the future of Israel. While our campuses remained quiet without the daily bustle of thousands of students or the numerous public gatherings so exemplative of the BGU experience, this integrity allowed us to remain as active as ever, not only in our homes, but in offices and in labs. And despite their own difficulties, our students, staff, and faculty reached out to their colleagues and neighbors in their time of hardship, exemplifying the BGU spirit and the meaning of community. Indeed, Today, more than ever, the case could be made that Ben-Gurion University of the Negev is the most important institution of higher learning for the future of Israel. How can I make what might be construed as a bombastic statement? Well, follow my reasoning. Decades ago, Ben-Gurion said that the future of Israel will arise from the Negev, and today we are living that future. Second, for the Negev to continue to thrive and enable this future, Beersheba must grow into a cosmopolitan metropolis that will attract young people from all over Israel to build their futures here in the Negev. And finally, the engine driving the development of Beersheba is our university. We are the city's largest employer. We provide the high-tech graduates building our thriving advanced technology park. We are at the center of the developing innovation district. And we are the reason that the IDF has decided to move its advanced intelligence units from the center of country to the south, adjacent to our campus. So for me, the logic is simple. Considering that the future of Israel is dependent on the Negev, and the Negev is dependent on Beersheba, and Beersheba is dependent on BGU. So it follows that the future of Israel is also dependent on BGU, on all of us. At last year's virtual Board of Governors meeting, I presented a strategic plan for the university with its recommendations ultimately aimed at positioning BGU as the leading university in Israel. Presenting and committing to implement the strategic plan involved a certain amount of risk. Indeed, change can be perceived as a threat by some, and by publishing these plans, we are allowing ourselves to be held accountable. But this risk is inevitable and essential if we are to lead Ben-Gurion University to new achievements and standing. Over the past year, despite the pandemic, we spared no effort in moving forward with implementations. Working groups endeavored diligently to develop detailed plans for realizing our various aspects of our strategy, and millions of dollars have already been invested to improve the overall research and teaching capabilities of the university. These achievements build on our remarkable accomplishments of the past half-century. Many are so well known that many of you may take them for granted. These include our cyber capabilities, influence on the Bedouin populations of the Negev, the Ben-Gurion archives, and the Mandel program in social leadership, just to name a few, while leaving out numerous others. But now I want to focus for a few minutes on several new developments over the past year that dovetail with our remarkable story. Just last month, our Senate approved the founding of BGU's newest school, the School of Sustainability and Climate Change. Over 100 researchers from all campuses and all faculties have come together to build Israel's largest and most diverse supradisciplinary school. This school is dedicated to solving the century's biggest challenge, living on our planet in a sustainable fashion so that our children and grandchildren can also enjoy the riches of our world. This new school gathered its inspiration from our 50 years of experience and know-how, garnered from learning to live and thrive in this desert. And our commitment to excellence and to impact, to problem-based research, to close connections with industry ensures that the School for Sustainability and Climate Change at Ben-Gurion University will become the go-to place for scientists and students from Israel and indeed from around the world. Many of you have already been exposed to the remarkable autism research coming out of BGU. So now I am proud to announce that recently we received a very significant donation to continue this groundbreaking work in the newly named Azrieli National Autism Research Center. With this new support, the National Autism Research Center, a joint venture of researchers from both the university and the Soroka University Medical Center, will expand its research to other locations in Israel. Scientists from all over the country and the world will be coming to BGU to carry out critical research into autism. We have also established over the past year the Manya Eigel Initiative in Innovative Nutrition and Food Research. This initiative builds on groundbreaking research coming out of BGU's International Center for Health and Nutrition and expands to include numerous faculty members throughout our campuses. Recently, Research coming out of the center showed the importance of our Mediterranean diet in reducing cardiometabolic disease. So keep eating Israeli salad and soft cheese. And over the past year, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, BGU made its first 2 international forays, founding satellite campuses in India and in the United States. Together with our Indian partner, ABAN, we established an agricultural research facility in Chennai, India, that will offer local students the opportunity to enroll in our courses and to get a BGU degree. The new institute's research will be under the supervision of faculty from the Blaustein Institutes of Desert Research at our Stable Care campus. Through this initiative, a new generation of Indian researchers will receive the tools to deal with some of the most pressing issues in the modern world. Issues such as the need of modern and effective agriculture methods for improving food production, and technological innovations for increasing the quality and volume of available water. And just last month, I signed an agreement in the presence of New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, creating the Institute for Future Technologies, a joint institute on the banks of the Hudson, facing Manhattan, of BGU and the New Jersey Institute of Technology. This institute will carry out cutting-edge research in cybercomputing and in environmental and civil engineering. I wonder how Israel's first entrepreneur and chief visionary, David Ben-Gurion, would view these developments. I dare say he would be delighted. Ben-Gurion, who predicted that the future would arise from the Negev, who championed U.S. and Israel relations, who felt a deep affinity between Hindu and Hebrew thinking, would be thrilled at these new institutes. I can even imagine him talking not only of an Oxford in the Negev, but of a BGU on the Hudson or a BGU of the East. Indeed, as was so clear with the groundbreaking research arising from our COVID-19 research task force, as part of the international scientific community, it is our duty to share our scientific research and know-how for the benefit of the world. And I am sure the graduates of these new institutes will have a great impact on their societies. And speaking of graduates, isn't it remarkable that our graduates have literally changed the world and include this year's Ben-Gurion Award laureate, Moderna's Dr. Tal Zaks, who got his MD from the Goldman School of Medicine and did his PhD research with the late Shraga Segal, who founded the Department of Immunology and Microbiology in the Faculty of Health Sciences. And remarkably, more than 50 years after our founding, our commitment to our community is more alive and flourishing than ever. Students from all over Israel come to BGU for the honor to be called a Ben-Gurioni, a BGU student. More than 6,000 students from all corners of Israeli society, about 50% of our undergraduate student body, are involved in a wide variety of community and social projects in the region under the auspices of BGU's Department of Community Action. And coming back to our response to the pandemic, it is remarkable that we were the only university in Israel to guarantee that no student would be left behind because of the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 25% of our student body received extra financial aid this year, thanks to the commitment of you, our friends, of all of us to the future of Israel, and that is our students. 2 years ago, I dared to dream of the barren ground which will become the North Campus. And now, thanks to several transformative gifts, I ask you to imagine our North Campus in only a few years' time. Bear with me and close your eyes and picture this. At the top of the campus, the Nachum Guzik Cultural Center will greet people just outside the new north entrance to the campus. In this modern concert hall and conference center, we will host international meetings, world-class musicians, and hold our important events such as the future Board of Governors meetings and graduation ceremonies. We will also finally have a visitor center where thousands of guests and tourists will come to witness firsthand the miracle of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev and get a glimpse of our remarkable research. Across the plaza from this center, dormitories housing 1,000 students will open already this October. This modern complex will have cafes and shops opening upon the plaza, so students and visitors can interact on a daily basis. Now, just through the entrance gate, a wide promenade will be the main pedestrian thoroughfare of the North Campus. On the left, the Glazer Homeland Security Building will house state-of-the-art cyber and robotics laboratories and research facilities which will enable us to attract the best and the brightest of Israel's young academic talent. Right next door, the Drehi Innovation and Classroom Building is critical to absorb the ever-growing student body. This building will contain classrooms designed for the student of the mid-21st century. Classrooms where soldiers from the neighboring bases will embark on academic studies while completing their military service. Our entrepreneurship center, Yazamut 360, will be seamlessly integrated with these classrooms. And below this building, leading to the Marcus campus, a new sprawling complex to house our ever-growing Department of Computer Science. And from here, people will exit the North Campus through the new main entrance, the Ernest Scheller Jr. Gate of Innovation. Can you picture this new reality emerging as we speak? But we are just getting started. What I've described are buildings, but in these buildings will be Israel's greatest researchers. Over the past 2 years, we've brought back to Israel the brightest academics to build their future at BGU. Later in today's program, you will meet several of them. Tens more are waiting for us to offer them positions to partner in our dreams, to teach the students bubbling with curiosity. We owe it to them to give them world-class facilities so that they can provide the solutions for whatever future crisis awaits, just as the current researchers at BGU led the way in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. As we emerge to the new post-COVID reality, I look forward to renewing my in-person meetings with you abroad and here at the university. While we've done well by Zoom, nothing beats drinking coffee or wine together. I hope to see many of you on our trip to the United Arab Emirates and Sde Boker in October. And if not then, at our 52nd edition of the Board of Governors meeting, which will be held here in person next year. I promise you a great party. And in closing, I would like to paraphrase a quote from one of my childhood heroes, Martin Luther King Jr. To paraphrase him, I will say, the ultimate measure of Ben-Gurion University is not where it stands in moments of comfort, but where the university stands at times of challenge and controversy. Undoubtedly, we have met the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis, and today the light of our university shines brighter than ever around the world. I hope today's program will inspire you and make you proud. You are, after all, partners in our historic endeavor.
That was amazing. I mean, if you don't want to study at Ben-Gurion University right now, I don't know what you're looking for. All right, thank you for that, President Shemovitz. I'd like to welcome the rector now of BGU, Professor Chaim Hines.
Hi, everyone. Less than a year ago, in May 2020, I addressed you at what was our first attempt at a virtual Board of Governors. I do not think that any of us really expected that almost a year later, we would still be in the grips of COVID-19 and would be holding a second virtual board. Last May, there were around 16,000 confirmed cases and some 250 deaths from the virus in Israel. Now, there are some 800,000 confirmed cases and over 6,000 deaths. And yet, as I address you, there is a sense of optimism as science and human ingenuity have come up with vaccines which will allow us to live with the coronavirus and return to a semblance of normality. As a community of academics, leaders, and administrators, we have come together to make the best out of a difficult situation. Our undergraduates have been able to continue their studies, albeit from a distance, and mainly via the computer screen. And while this has not been ideal, it has definitely been better than nothing. Our postgraduates have continued coming to their labs and doing their research while taking all the necessary precautions, such as keeping physical distance and wearing masks, allowing them to stay healthy. And perhaps, even more surprisingly, the number of students who have started their university education this academic year rose in comparison to last year. My guess is that aside from this being a strong vote of confidence in the university and what we are doing, it is also a reflection of the job market and the fact that travel abroad has never been less enticing. Every crisis is also an opportunity for re-evaluation and change. The past year has given us all much food for thought about how we teach, the structure of our courses, how we engage our students, the ways we evaluate them, and what skills and tools they need in a fast-changing work environment. We have invested heavily in technology that will allow for hybrid teaching, adapting almost 100 of our lecture halls and classrooms to allow students to choose whether to be physically present in the classroom or connected via Zoom on their computers. A camera follows the lecturer's movements and focuses on what she writes on the whiteboard. Loudspeakers allow the students at home to participate in the discussion, and there is a screen on the podium which allows the lecturer to control what is going on in the classroom and to engage with those at home. This investment in technology is designed to allow far more flexibility in both learning and teaching during and after Corona. How we evaluate courses has also changed and has raised interesting ethical issues about the invasion of privacy on the one hand and technologically ensuring the integrity of online exams on the other. In the end, and after much discussion and deliberation, we opted for less intrusive software and more online proctoring, though it is clear to us all that there were not inconsequential number of students who played a little freely with the ethical code of conduct. At the end of the day, however, in many courses, much of the emphasis moved from examinations to coursework done during the semester in determining the final grade. This change has additional benefits in increasing the skill sets that the students get from the course. Instead of simply regurgitating material, as often happens in exams, they need to engage with what they are learning and put theory into practice. In many discussions that I have held with our academic staff, I have discovered that they are using the online platforms as a way of stimulating discussion and debate by, for instance, setting up breakout rooms where students have to come up with solutions to problems based on the theoretical materials being taught in the plenum. Instead of being passive listeners, as students often are in a classroom setting, they become active participants and acquire a more in-depth knowledge of their subject. The use of course blogs as a way of getting the students to continue being involved after the formal lecture, with their inputs being counted towards their final grade if it makes a significant contribution, is also something new. These new ways of doing things will carry over into the post-corona world or the new corona reality and will inform much of what we do at the university. We have also used this time to move forward with our long-term goal of being a world-leading university, working on initiatives that provide new vistas and opportunities for research and teaching while breaking down barriers between disciplines and encouraging cooperation and collaboration. Our new School of Sustainability and Climate Change is a prime example and goes hand in hand with a revamped program in statistics and data analysis, which is becoming an increasingly important knowledge and skill area for many different disciplines in the university. Our second intake of hand-picked, excellent students are continuing their studies in the A-Ton program, which gives them the freedom during their first 2 years to take classes from almost any degree program they want, as they decide what area they want to focus on for their postgraduate work. This small but select group of students who are on full scholarships will be in high demand by labs all over the university, and the program has aroused great interest around the country and is bringing truly excellent candidates to apply to the university. David Lodge, one of the finest satirical novelists on the topic of academia in the 20th century, wrote about the genesis of his novel Small World, and I quote, "It gradually drew on me that there was an analogy between my story and the Arthurian story, particularly the Grail quest, in which a group of knights wander around the world, having adventures, pursuing ladies, love and glory, jousting with each other, meeting rather coincidentally or unexpectedly, facing constant challenges and crises, and so on. This all corresponded to the modern world with its round table of professors, the elite group who get invited to conferences, who go around the world in pursuit of glory. Sometimes they take the opportunity to joust with each other in debate, pursuing glory in the sense of wanting to be at the top of their profession," end quote. While perhaps an exaggerated depiction of the comfort circuit and the additional benefits of academic life, Lodge colorfully describes what has gone missing from academia over the past year: collegiality, dialogue, and discussion, things which are so crucial for the fruitful exchange of ideas and building academic partnerships, which are necessary for producing excellent research. What is missing is the daily interaction over a cup of coffee in the cafeteria, a chance meeting in the library stacks, and an off-the-cuff remark by a student which can lead to new avenues of research and great ideas. Returning to the campus is not a luxury, but a necessity for researchers and students alike. Our students come to the university not only because of the quality of the degrees they get, but also because of the student life on and around campus, which provides them with a safe space and time to explore their identities, ask questions about their purpose and meaning of life, do volunteer work, and party. Our researchers need the informal interaction with each other and with their students, which is so central to academic creativity. Collaborative research perhaps can be done online, but making the initial connections can only happen in the informal, yet stimulating academic atmosphere of a vibrant, bustling, and engaged campus. We are working hard to bring back that reality. The vaccination program has provided us with safe ways of bringing the university campuses back to life. I am full of admiration for our academic faculty, our administrative and technical staff, and of course our students. The past year has been extremely challenging for everyone, and we have all had to think about how we arrange our time, how we find the right balance between work and home when the latter has often become our workplace, how we balance parenting on steroids with study and research, how we make ends meet financially, and how to support our loved ones, grandparents, parents, partners, children, while also taking care of our own needs. This is an opportunity to thank them for all they have done for the university community over the last year. I very much hope that this second virtual Board of Governors will be the last one, and that next year we will be able to host you all on campus. I am certain that we will all have plenty of Corona stories to tell, and that this challenging period will have an impact on how we live our lives and decide what is important and what is less so. We are determined to continue to make an impact on the Negev, Israel, and the world, and we are grateful to have you all as our partners and friends. Next year, in Israel, Be'er-Sheva, and at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. Thank you to one and all, and stay safe.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rector Hames. And now let us move on to the procedural part of our event, which will be conducted by Orly Peretz, liaison to the Board of Governors. Orly, take it away.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Hello, everybody. This last Monday, the Finance Committee, under the chairmanship of Lionel Halperin, reviewed and approved the financial statements valid for September 30th, 2020. Which you received electronically in advance. Members of the Board of Governors only are now asked to vote on the financial statements by pressing on one of the two buttons on your screens. Those in favor, please press I approve. Those against, please press I do not approve. The board hereby approves the financial statements. I would now like to present the recommendations of the nominating committee for new members of the Board of Governors to be elected for a 3-year term. These recommendations are the result of consultations with the relevant associate organizations and were presented in the Board of Governors information booklets distributed electronically 2 weeks ago. The nominees are Yechiel Ben-Shushan, Israel, Maggie Kamp, France, Gary the Bodie, United States, Ahmad Iyad, Israel, Jane Gural Sanders, United States. Sophie Halperin, France. Roni Chizkiyahu, Israel. Nava Ruben Sadeh, Argentina. Andrea Yarach, Italy. Barry Lipson, Canada. Philippe Mouchard, Belgium. Lorenz Ochayon, Switzerland. Jeff Polak, United States. Joel Reinstein, United States. Uzi Rosen, Israel. Zvika Schwimmer, Israel. Natalie Schneiderman, Israel. Dr. Dalia Tsamarion Chalak, Israel. Once again, I ask all board members in favor, please press I approve. Any board members against, press I do not approve. The nominations are approved. We congratulate the new members of the Board of Governors on their appointment and wish them great success. I would now like to present the recommendations for re-elected members of the Board of Governors whose 3-year term expires this year. Members of the board in the first or second year of their current term continue automatically. These recommendations are the result of consultations with the nominees and the relevant associate organizations. Their names are now presented on the screen, and the full list can be found in the information booklets. I ask all board members in favor to please press I approve. Any board members against, press I do not approve. The nominations are approved. I would like to thank these board members for their continued partnership and support. I would also like to express our deep gratitude to the members of the board who will retire at the end of this meeting. I am confident that we can count on their continued interest and support. As we celebrate the introduction of new members to our family, we must sadly also acknowledge that some have passed away during the last year. Eric Charles, United Kingdom. Aaron Fish, Canada. The third president of Ben-Gurion University, Major General Reserves, Shlomo Gazit, Israel. Chairman Emeritus of the Board of Governors, Alexander Goren, United States. Avraham Ben David Ochayon, Switzerland. Moshe Olenik, Israel. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, United Kingdom. Dr. Eric Samson, South Africa. Gerard Worms, France. May their memory be a blessing. The President would like to say a few words in memory of Alex Goren.
Words cannot adequately describe Alex's legacy at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. His close relationship with BGU began before its inception, and I enjoyed hearing his retelling of how the Minister of Finance, Pinchas Sapir, told Alex's father that he had helped him sell his factory in Dimona, but that he also arranged for him to donate the proceedings to founding a new university in Beersheba. From here, his family became forever connected to what would become BGU. Alex remained a close friend of the university for over 5 decades. His and his family's names are found all over campus, attesting to their long-standing support of the university. And the Kukier Goldstein-Gorin Scholarship Fund will benefit our students for generations to come. But more than just a supporter, Alex was intimately involved in leading the university, first as president of AABGU, and until 2019, as chairman of the Board of Governors. I recently found a letter from 1995 where Alex wrote to then President Braverman, "I am by nature a negotiator, accustomed to consider both sides." And Alex indeed used his personal charm to help the university through a number of difficult patches. Alex's passing also touches me personally. He had a big hand in bringing me to BGU. His warm and sage advice were critical to my first steps as president, putting the university into historical perspective that I so lacked as an outsider. And perhaps equally as important, for me at least, Alex was especially welcoming to my wife Shira at our first Board of Governors event in 2019, and I will ever be thankful to him for that. To Alex's loving wife Brooke, his siblings Viviana, Michaela, and James, and his children Andrea, Selena, and Brett, you and your family should know that you have a loving home away from home at BGU forever. We will do everything in our power to continue Alex's legacy.
I guess I think myself as an investor. You know, because father was so attached to Israel and went so often, etc. When we went to Palestine towards the end of the war, and after the war ended, he was very interested in starting some industry in Israel to create jobs for the people who were coming to have business in Israel.
He is now retiring as chair of the Board of Governors, but before that he had all the positions in the American Associates of Ben-Gurion University. Great deal of knowledge about all kinds of subjects. One of the things he loves is food, and he's a wonderful chef. Once when I was having dinner at his home and I complimented the food, he had cooked it himself.
Very accessible chairman of the board. I could always pick the phone and visit him, meet him whenever I wanted.
I could always rely on Alex, on his strength, his wisdom, and his leadership.
What a beautiful tribute. This concludes the procedural portion of this meeting. I'd like to let everybody know that there are hundreds watching right now, so we have a good crowd here, which is now why I'd like to introduce our next guest. For over 50 years now, Ben-Gurion University has been blessed by generous financial contributions from donors at all corners of the world. Their dedication and partnership has been and still is critical in the joint efforts to build and support the university that we all know and love so much. So on that note, I would like to present the Vice President for Public Affairs and Resource Development, Mr. Jeff Kay. Jeff?
Thank you, Natasha. It is a meaningful privilege for me to receive the honor of paying tribute to the donors and contributors to Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, many of whom are participating in today's Board of Governors meeting. Over 4,000 names from tens of countries are engraved on donor walls throughout our 3 campuses. Each name represents a family or an individual who was guided by their heart to give generously, and by doing so to have a lasting impact at BGU, to make a difference. On behalf of our students and faculty, we say Toda Rabba. We appreciate each and every one of you. But today we recognize the newest members of our giving societies. These individuals have displayed extraordinary leadership by providing the university with exceptional levels of financial support, and their generosity and devotion is a model for all of us. No words can be truer than those of David Ben-Gurion, who said that Israel is the creation of many generations. There is no better place to witness this truth than at BGU.
Wow, thank you very much, Vice President Kay. Now, We are getting close to our first break, but before we take a breather, I'd like to tell you about a very special event that is going to be held on April 25th in just about 2 weeks from now. It's going to be held by AABGU, and for the first time ever, an honorary doctorate will be awarded online. Dr. Ruth Westheimer, the world-renowned sex therapist, author, and media personality, will be the special recipient. We're also going to be thanking her for the scholarship foundation that she created for psychology students at Ben-Gurion University, so you're not going to want to miss it. On that note, we're taking a 10-minute break. Go and enjoy a coffee, breathe. When we get back, we're going to meet some of Ben-Gurion University's most prominent scholars and students, and we even have a very special surprise for you, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon. Delighted to welcome you back to the second part of the 51st Board of Governors meeting of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. The opening video of our last session touched upon some of the fundamental aspirations of the man sitting opposite me, Professor Daniel Shamovitz. As the president of BGU, he presented us with the outstanding achievements of this remarkable university, achievements that were all somehow accomplished even amidst a global pandemic. Now, in this session, we plan to explore Ben-Gurion University's long-term vision. We're going to meet some of the brightest and the most exciting researchers on campus. We'll hear from our students, and we'll even enjoy a few surprises in what I promise will be a gripping 60 minutes. Now, Danny, I know that you're passionately dedicated to innovative research and, of course, creating real solutions that will improve people's lives. So can you expand on this for us and what you're doing to make that happen?
Yeah, well, I hate to keep harping on the COVID crisis, but I think how we functioned over the past year really exemplifies what is great about BGU and how we do our research. So almost a year and a month ago, with this pandemic, hitting us, I called on the researchers of Ben-Gurion University to put their research aside and to come to my office and to present me ways that we can work together to find solutions. And the next day, over 60 researchers showed up in that room. We did a mini hackathon for about 3 hours. And within 3 weeks, we had funded over 24 projects in all faculties, different types of mixings of people from different disciplines. And these groups yielded 8 patents, 4 companies, and really research that affected things from communications to virology to diagnostics, and to just help keeping both our country and the world safe. And so what we see here is that when we get rid of the silos that really divide disciplines and take a problem-based approach, we can really use all the wonderful things of academic research to solve some of the world's greatest problems.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because we're going to speak more about innovation right now. I'd actually like to turn to a short clip introducing Dr. Shelly Levit-Tzedek from BGU's Department of Physical Therapy. Dr. Levit-Tzedek runs the university's Cognition, Aging, and Rehabilitation Lab, and she's designed gamified social robots that help stroke patients recover and manage pain. Just take a look at this.
What if you had suffered a stroke and had difficulty buttoning your own shirt? Or your doctor tells you you need to do exercises to ease your pain, but you never follow through, right? What if you had a robot help you with these exercises at home? People who've had a stroke often lose the ability to perform everyday activities. Something like pouring yourself a glass of water may become an extremely difficult task, one which you have to practice over and over again thousands of times to do well. Some of this practice is done in the clinic with a physical therapist, but the majority of the practice needs to be done by the patient on their own, at home. And the reality is that people don't practice enough, and that can be for a variety of reasons. Practicing the same action over and over again may be boring, frustrating, painful, and they may be worried they're not exercising correctly since they receive no feedback. We designed a robotic system that helps people do this exercise on their own. The system is fully sensorized so patients can get feedback as they practice various actions. For example, grabbing a jar of coffee, lifting it, and placing it on a shelf. Another problem for stroke patients is that they often use compensatory movements, such as bending their torso instead of reaching with their arm because they can't straighten it. So we also built a machine learning algorithm to alert patients when they use compensatory movements which we want them to avoid. So we're using artificial intelligence and social robotics to help people practice within the limited window of opportunity following a stroke, in which it is crucial that they practice as much as possible. My research team just started analyzing the data from our experiment, and we're seeing that 90% of those who practiced with a robot over a 5-week period showed improvement in their clinical scores, as opposed to none of those who only received the standard treatment. This is the first experiment in the world to test how such a robotic system can help patients in the long term. The beauty of working at BGU is that I can work on this with people from a variety of fields, including psychology, engineering, and healthcare. BGU supports this in a variety of ways, including dedicated grants and a robotics initiative. In this way, we're creating a future in which people can maintain their independence and their dignity.
All right, now I'd like to turn back to you, Danny. Dr. Levi-Tzedek emphasized how her research involves people from multiple fields, and not only her Department of Physical Therapy. Is her approach unique within the BGU system?
Definitely not. I want to give an example that no one's heard of yet, which really exemplifies how this interdisciplinary approach can work. So everyone knows that Ben-Gurion University of the Negev houses David Ben-Gurion's archives.
Right.
All of his diaries, all of his handwritten diaries.
Yes.
And one of our challenges is how to make his diaries accessible to the world. Now, we all know about digitizing printed text, and Google does that wonderfully. But how can we digitize David Ben-Gurion's handwriting? This is a major technological, computational problem.
Right.
Now, it ends up, by chance, at Ben-Gurion University, we have one of the world's experts in deciphering difficult handwriting. And that's Professor Jihad Hassana, the world's first Bedouin professor of computer science, who used to be the head of the Department of Computer Science. And so now we have Professor Hassana, who is using his expertise to write algorithms, which are going to help us decipher David Ben-Gurion's handwriting so that his archives can be available to the world, accessible to the world, and then for the research of researchers around the world. So we have computer science and history, Zionist history, coming together, a Bedouin and Jewish researchers only at Ben-Gurion University.
Oh, it's extremely, extremely exciting. You know, how critical is such an approach for making important discoveries? You know, or are there other examples within BGU, of course, of such interdisciplinary research?
I could just go on forever about this. How much time do we have? So earlier,
you have enough time.
So earlier in the program today, I talked about the new donation from the Azrieli Foundation, founding the Azrieli National Autism Research Center. And what do we have here? Why did Ben-Gurion get this donation? Why were we chosen to have the National Autism Research Center? Because we're the only place in Israel where a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a computer scientist, a geneticist are within what I call coffee distance, where they can get together, a 5-minute walk between Soroka and the university, between the different departments, drink coffee, and come up with fascinating new ideas on how to study autism. And this is really at the DNA of the Ben-Gurion University experience, this idea that everyone can get together, that everyone's on the same area to make amazing, amazing discoveries.
Right, and you mentioned that that was what was essential in taking on the coronavirus pandemic, right?
Exactly.
The beginning of
exactly. We, people from public health, we had people from social work, people from engineering, people from computer science, all coming together to understand what can we do to make that next big discovery. We're not, I mean, one of our challenges as a university moving forward is how to go from a discipline-based university, which is what most universities are, to a problem-based university, and really realizing that these definitions of existing expertise are really artificial, but that all of us together can really do the next great thing.
absolutely. It's about interconnectivity, right? Bringing people together to find these solutions. All right, so it's amazing to hear about these accomplishments. Now, we have another exciting video for everyone. This time, we're actually introducing assistant professor and lecturer Ori Beck, who specializes in the philosophy of perception, the mind, and epistemology. Take a look.
I work in the philosophy of mind. I focus on trying to put together what the cognitive sciences are telling us about how the brain works, with our immediate understanding of ourselves as creatures that sense, think, and know about the world around us. On the one hand, strong arguments based on current results in the cognitive sciences suggest that our experiences are determined by what goes on inside our brains. That means that even if you were nothing but a lonely brain floating around in an empty universe, so long as that brain worked as it does now, you would have the same experiences as you do now. On the other hand, experiences make us aware of things outside our brains. For example, when you hear your daughter call out to you, you become aware of the needs of another person, not of neurons firing inside your head. And similarly, when you experience the sun, you become aware of a star that's 150 million kilometers away, not of a neurotransmitter in your synapses. It is difficult to understand how experience could be both determined by what goes on inside our brains and also make us aware of things outside our brains. For example, how can I know that the sun is setting on the basis of my experience if I could have that same experience without ever seeing the sun? In my research, I focus on understanding how scientific discoveries about the brain can be reconciled with the idea that we can experience the outside world. To that end, it's crucial that I keep up to date with both new cognitive research and ongoing developments in philosophical thought. The end goal is to marry cognitive science and philosophy in a way that helps us understand the mind's place in the physical world. Philosophy is a lonely field. Most of what I do is sit, read, and write alone. Luckily, knowledge often involves collaboration with others. This includes picking the brains of my psychology colleagues and getting my students to understand both the physics and the metaphysics of the mind.
Mind-blowing. It's very impressive. Now, Danny, after listening to Dr. Beck, I'm curious as to how you see the futures of the fields of philosophy and humanities in Ben-Gurion University of the Negev.
I think that Ori's presentation really highlights what the future of the humanities can and maybe should be. We sort of tend to think of the humanities completely isolated, off in their own little corner, in their own part of the library, sort of separated from the technological parts of the university.
Interesting.
But as we move on, as science moves forward, we're seeing again and again and again that there is no separation. Now, that's also a very artificial separation. I mean, when someone gets their doctorate, what is a PhD? It's a doctor of philosophy.
Right.
That's, scientists
True.
used to be considered philosophers. You don't get a doctor of science, it's a doctor of philosophy. And so Uli is showing the importance of psychologists understanding the basis of philosophy for what they're doing, and also how it's important for philosophers to really understand the science of what's going around. And we're seeing this in many fields within the humanities. For example, within our new School of Sustainability and Climate Change, which we heard about earlier, archaeology is part of this. What's the connection between archaeology and climate change?
Right.
It's because our archaeologists have shown that 3,000 and 4,000 years ago, there are cities, communities within Israel which were destroyed or abandoned because of changes of climate, because of changes of food availability. So when we integrate the humanities, when we integrate history with our science, then we get the best of both worlds. And if we can sell it that way, if we can develop it this way, the university will just go
Absolutely. And I think that students, that's what they want. They want the ability to be able to learn in all of these different fields, not just that one course track, you know?
Exactly. And this is one of our challenges moving forward, is this integration and showing the relevance of the humanities for all of what we're studying.
It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Now, I'd like to actually talk about the heart of the university community, which is ultimately students, right? You aim to provide them with not only top-class education, but also the understanding that commitment to community is key here. And when you first arrived to Ben-Gurion University, I heard this very fun fact that you spent quite a lot of time just walking out and about on campus and trying to get to know the students, you know, ask them questions. Why was this so important to you?
Well, first of all, as a newcomer to the university, it was clear to me that I had to get a feel for what the university is, and at its core, as you said, the university is the students. Second of all, as a teacher, overall, that's what I am. I'm a teacher.
Right.
Even as I'm doing my research, I'm teaching. When I'm teaching my classes, I'm interacting with the students. And often in my office, in the presidential office, I'm missing that interaction. I no longer have a class of 300 students that I teach twice a day.
Right.
So it was critical for me to find the students, to understand what they're passionate about. I would probably scare them, something, because I would actually go to Aroma and randomly sit down at a table and start talking to students. They would not, of course, who recognized the president? Then I would tell them I was the president, and there'd be this look of shock on their face, and, you know. But then after a little while, they would, you know, really tell me what they felt about the university. And that's what I've missed over the past year. You can't do a random Zoom with students. You don't have those random meetings.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to them coming back to campus this month.
Well, it's also just so essential in understanding what is happening on the ground, what students want the most out of the university and out of these courses that they're being provided.
Well, it's also a little egoistical. I know, I mean, yeah, it's important for me to understand what they want, but I feed off of their energy, and that gives me the energies to continue on as president.
Yeah, you make me miss university. I want to go back to university now.
Well, Ben-Gurion is waiting for you.
That's the next step.
There you go.
All right, Danny. Now, some of you may have heard of Hillel. After all, it is the largest Jewish campus organization in the world with thousands of college students globally. But Hillel is on a mission to provide Jewish students with a stronger sense of identity and community as they pursue a higher education. And they're not only existing on campuses outside of Israel. In fact, there is Hillel at Ben-Gurion University as well. So let's get to know some of their students.
Ben-Gurion University and Hillel started a while ago.
שמי אסיה, אני לומדת רוקחות.
My name is Inbar Reshef. I study mechanical engineering.
אני שנה שלישית בתואר בפוליטיקה וממשל ותקשורת.
בערך מגיל תיכון ידעתי שאני רוצה להתעסק בתחומים של יהדות תפוצות, משרד החוץ, דיפלומטיה.
פרויקט בשביל להיחשף לאיך חיו היהודים במדינות במזרח אירופה. וזה היה נשמע לי פרויקט חלומי כזה.
The reason I keep coming back to Ben-Gurion, I did my MBA here as well, is I really believe the values the university promotes.
אם זה ליברליות וקבלת האחר, אז אני מאוד מאוד תומך בערכים האלה. ולכן רציתי לקחת חלק, לתרום לארגון ולהתערם מהארגון.
בבן-גוריון אני מרגישה שלפחות במחלקה שלי מאוד עודדו אותנו לעשייה חברתית. המרצים, גם הסטודנטים, תמיד היה מקום לקחת איזושהי פעילות שהיא מעבר לדרישות אקדמיות.
נחשפנו לאישה שהיא ניצולת שואה בבלרוס. היא פשוט סיפרה לנו את כל מה שהיא עברה. 80 אנשים ישבו בחדר והרגישו את כל מה שהיא הרגישה. וזה מבחינתי היה נקודת תפנית כזאת שהבנתי שאנחנו לא עושים מספיק.
ומאוד עניין אותי תמיד כל מה שהוא מעבר ליהדות כדת. יהדות כתרבות, יהדות כמסורת. ובהלל מצאתי את זה, מצאתי את המקום הזה להתייחס ליהדות מעבר לדת משלוש דתות.
תיקון עולם, I think it's some term that really allows everyone to connect to it differently.
לעשות את העולם קצת יותר טוב ממה שהוא היה לפניי.
אם זה למען הסטודנטים, אם זה למען ניצולי שואה, אם זה למען היהודים בתפוצות.
They can see what they want to change in the world, what they want to make better, and through that action to make it happen.
You have a chance to have a discussion, and some kind of a discussion. And I think that's what I love most about having something that joins us all together.
Now I understand what you were saying about community spirit at Ben-Gurion University. So, you know, I know along with being a scientist, you're also a musician and you're the author of a very popular book. So can you share, you know, with us a little bit about why these activities are also so important to you?
I think when you look at academics in general, while there might be this idea of two-dimensionality, almost all academics I know have interests outside of their own field. A lot of my students were shocked to know that it wasn't until I was 31 years old that I had any idea that I would actually be a professor. I actually didn't think I was talented enough to be a scientist.
Wow.
And so I've always played guitar. I wrote a book. Writing is important to me. And it's this creativeness outside of the academia, which I think plays off of the creation that we do within academia. Research is an incredibly creative endeavor.
Right.
It's creating something from nothing. Nothing can be more creative than that. And I think as we'll see, you know, when we're talking with some of our young scientists, that they all have interests outside of what they're doing. And it's critical for keeping us balanced. And I think it makes us more creative in our own professional endeavors.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I remember when I was in university, I did a million after-school activities, you could say, just because, you know, you want something else to kind of give you that creative drive when you go back to the books.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to go now meet two other special researchers who have been recruited recently. And speaking of hobbies, Danny, Dr. Shira Chapman is not only a physicist, she's also a violinist, and Dr. Ben Palmer is a chemist who also happens to be a keen rugby fan. Let's say hello.
We've all heard about black holes. Perhaps somewhat counterintuitively, black holes are this very massive and dense object, so dense that even light cannot escape. We would like to understand what happens to the laws of physics deep inside a black hole.
The colors of chameleons, the visual system of scallops, the brilliant colors of butterflies. Many of nature's most amazing optical phenomena are produced by the reflection of light from crystals. How can we learn from these systems to produce the next generation of optical materials for us?
Black holes are a good testing ground for gravity under extreme conditions. In my research, I discovered that the physics of black holes is deeply connected to the physics of quantum systems. Quantum systems are entangled. That means that different particles influence each other's state instantaneously, a kind of spooky action at a distance. The relation of black holes and quantum systems is very surprising. We have two completely different physical systems which are described by the exact same rules. This relation helps us study the physics inside black holes, but also the other way around. We can use the tools of gravity to build better quantum computers. Quantum computers use the principle of superposition, the fact that particles can be at different states at the same time to perform computation in parallel on different inputs. This holds a great promise to accelerate significantly tasks such as deciphering of encryption. On a day-to-day basis, I study Einstein's equation to understand how black holes are influenced by objects thrown into them, and I run simulations of quantum systems to see how the two are related. We are now discussing a collaboration with ELTA, the radar division of the Israel Aerospace Industries, to construct the first Israeli quantum computer.
Many optical effects involved in coloration and vision in animals are produced by the reflection of light from crystals. Animals exquisitely control the crystallization of simple organic molecules to make these highly functional optical materials. But nothing is known about how they do this. For the first time, my lab is trying to unveil the tricks that animals use to control the formation of these materials, which are far beyond the state-of-the-art in chemistry. To do this, we follow the formation of crystalline materials in model organisms undergoing development, such as in shrimp, spiders, and lizards that can all be found here in the Negev and Elat. We use a new cryo-electron microscope in the nanocenter, which is the most advanced system of its kind in Israel. A particularly exciting goal is to uncover the genes controlling the formation of these materials. Understanding this would open the door to using the tools of molecular biology to genetically engineer new optical materials. Shira, congratulations on being a presidential recruit.
Well, thanks a lot. Congratulations to you too.
Thank you. So what makes BGU special to you?
Well, actually, for me, BGU is all about connections. I have really amazing collaborations within the physics department. I established a connection with the municipality of Beer-Sheva with a program that arranges public scientific talks for the community. And I even play in the Ben-Gurion University Chamber Music Ensemble. What about you? Why did you come to BGU?
So I came for a thriving and ambitious chemistry department, and also the university's commitment to establishing a top microscopy facility in the nanocenter. And also, here in Beer-Sheva, we're perfectly placed geographically to explore the amazing world of animal optics in the desert of the Negev and in the Gulf of Elat.
All right, now, Danny, recruiting these two obviously super intelligent and, of course, young researchers is really central to your strategy for the university. So why is this so important to you? And, of course, what is the role of philanthropy in this?
Thanks for the question, Natasha. Shira and Ben, I was personally involved in making sure they came to Ben-Gurion University and not to any other university in Israel. Because once I met them, once I talked to them, it was clear that they are so outstanding, so brilliant, that the reputations they make will then increase our reputation as Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. And as I've said so many times in the past, the greater our reputation, the more our ability to influence not only the Negev, but also the entire world. So it's essential that if we want to move forward in our next 50 years to become the leading university in Israel and one of the leading universities in the world, we need Shira, we need Ben, and we need hundreds or tens more like them. Yeah. The problem is that building laboratories for these people, for these real geniuses, is an expensive endeavor. Ben's laboratory, for example, was well over $1 million and actually reached over $2 million. And this is where the help of our friends is essential at convincing these scientists, these young Israelis, to build their futures at Ben-Gurion University and not at any other university in Israel. And that's why we've established this new, you saw that they each were called a presidential recruit with the name of the philanthropist, with the name of our supporter who supported them, to show that this is so essential for our future.
Yeah, it's a platform for developing not only the future, but the groundbreaking research that will provide solutions to some of the issues that we're dealing with today, like the coronavirus pandemic, right?
And it's actually so that it's our supporters that have a hand in bringing these scientists back to Israel from abroad. They're going against it's sort of like this philanthropy is not only helping Ben-Gurion University, it's reversing the brain drain.
Interesting. Bringing back some of the strongest minds that have now sought work abroad to the state of Israel.
Exactly.
Very important. All right. Well, speaking of which, it is now time for a surprise guest appearance. We were talking about a lot of surprises. Here it is for you. One of Israel's lead singers, songwriters, and musicians is now joining us. He's famous for his unique Masada Sunrise performance, and he wrote the music and recorded the famous Yonatan Geffen song, Yeh Tov. Now, if you haven't already guessed who I'm talking about, let's go straight to his home and say, hi, David Broza. How are you?
Hello everybody, shalom lekulam. It's an honor and a pleasure, kavod gadol, to appear before you, members of the board, governors of Ben-Gurion University in the Negev. Hello Danny, and how are you? I know it's been hard and all these past months, hard for everybody. Well, I chose a song that is probably belongs to the Negev, Shirava Bedouin, Bedouin love song. It goes like this. צלילי חלילה לחולות של המדבר היה שולח ליטפו את גופה הרך והסופה טרפה הכל חדה להיות כמו החולות אני רוצה אותך כמו סלע אז הבטיח לא למדוד שום שהרוחות אותו ליטפו בעוז החזם אותה אוהב אוזניו התמו לא לשמוע לא לנשום כלל את הצליל אתה נעבד לחש מדבר אתה נקבר באוהל צר והכבשים באו בבד Well, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did playing it, and I hope to see you very soon at the university. Come and visit you all and visit the students and talk about life and continuing with music and exploration. All the best. תודה רבה.
Toda lecha, David Broza. It was such a pleasure to have you with us. Now, we're nearing the end of our board meeting. A month ago, the university announced an exciting plan to establish Israel's first school of sustainability and climate change. Now, Danny, this seems to be an opportunity to present, an opportunity to harness BGU's already remarkable work in this field. Can you say a few words about this?
Sure. As I presented last year at the Board of Governors meeting, when we were doing the strategic planning, sustainability and climate change was identified as an unrealized strength of the university. And so we spent the past year trying to understand what can we do to get people from various fields, or what I called silos earlier, to collaborate, to cooperate for the good of humanity. It's clear, I think, to all of us as the pandemic is subsiding, that climate change is the greatest threat to our future, and that behooves us all to really come together to find solutions, to learn how to live in an increasingly warming environment. Now, what have we been doing at Ben-Gurion University for the past 50 years? We learned how to live in the desert. Right. Ben-Gurion said something like that scientists and researchers will sit at the gates of the Negev, learn how, find its secrets, learn how to make energy from the sun, water from the air, and food from the sands. I'm paraphrasing a bit, because of course it was in Hebrew.
That's fair.
Well, these we thought were local problems of the Negev, but once were local problems. It's now a global imperative. It's probably not shocking to find out that people from the United Arab Emirates, from Abu Dhabi and Dubai, from Morocco, are coming to Beersheba, to Sde Boker, to Ben-Gurion University of the Negev to learn from our expertise. Right. But sustainability and climate change is not only about technology. It's not only about engineering. It's learning how to live as a society. It's learning how to change economic models. It's learning about health. And so it's this really super disciplinary approach that only at Ben-Gurion University we have over 100, close to 150 researchers in this field, that we really are going to become the place in Israel and among the leaders of the world within this field.
Oh, it's absolutely fascinating. And, you know, on this note, in the spirit of this topic, I want to introduce you to Professor Itzik Mizrahi, who will talk to us about his research and how it can possibly prevent global warming.
Did you know that microbial communities are everywhere and drive basic processes in our everyday life? From the air that we breathe to the food that we eat. For example, communities of microbes, yes, microbes live in communities, decompose plants and our bodies when we die into carbon dioxide and transform it back into the very basic building blocks of life, enabling the renewal of our next generations. For me, microbes represent the true cycle of life. I study what makes microbes live and function together in communities, and ways to reshape and engineer such communities towards desired functions. I'm specifically interested in microbial communities, also termed microbiomes, that live in gut environments of animals. Why do I do that? Because they affect their hosts and are part of many of the processes that contribute to its well-being. One of my favorite research models is ruminants, like cows and sheep, as they represent the hallmark of host microbiome symbiosis. Ruminants, unlike human beings or mice, cannot live without their microbes. They are totally dependent on their microbiome to digest the plant fiber that they eat, and therefore are the perfect model to study host microbiome symbiosis. Moreover, with the growing world population, ruminants' microbiomes are extremely important to humanity's food security, as they are responsible for producing edible products from indigestible plant material. However, the rumen microbiome is also responsible for the production of large amounts of one of the most potent greenhouse gases, methane, which we all know contributes to global warming. In our studies conducted throughout the planet on thousands of cows, we have discovered that there are natural microbial communities that are responsible for producing less methane and more milk. We are now devising ways to synthetically engineer such communities and to modulate rumen microbiomes across the globe to be more environmentally friendly, but still maintain food security for the growing world population. These endeavors will have an immense environmental and agricultural impact. After moving here from the center with my research group and family, we found a very nurturing home here in Biju, both scientifically and socially.
I really never thought that I would be that excited about bacteria.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And on a personal note, I have to say that it is researchers like Itzik Mizrahi that convinced me over 2.5 years ago to come to Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. His passion, his excitement, and his quality, world class, is what gives me the energy, of course without the gases, to come to Ben-Gurion University every day with a smile on my face, knowing that we're doing amazing things to change this world. Natasha, I'm sitting here, and I'm so excited and touched to have had the opportunity to talk to our amazing community of friends and to hear from our amazing community of students and researchers. I believe that it will be the combined work of all of us that will allow BGU to really fulfill the legacy of David Ben-Gurion and to create an Oxford in the desert.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you, of course, Danny, and every one of you who have taken time to be with us today. And I promise that at the first opportunity, we're going to celebrate here on the Marcus campus in Beersheba. Now, we promised you a surprise, and we're about to fulfill our promise. In order to keep the sweet taste until next year, please welcome, with applause, Brainwash, BGU's faculty band, with the song Let It Be. We're all waiting to meet you here on the sand of the Negev next year.
עוד יש מפרש לבן באופק מול ענן שחור כבד כל שנבקש לו יהי ואם בחלונות הערב אור נרות החג רועד כל שנבקש לו יהי לו יהי לו יהי אנא לו יהי כל שנבקש לו יהי And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.